Okay, yeah, so welcome to World of Commodore. This presentation is called C64 OS version 1.0 released. I am Gregory Nacu, and we are opcoders. So 2022 was a seriously epic year for me, and I would love to tell you a little bit about it. In 2016, I came back to the Commodore 64 after about 8 years away. And in 2017, I started to design and develop an operating system called C64 OS for the Commodore 64. It wasn't until about 2019 that I gave the first kind of real demo at World of Commodore. And shortly thereafter, in 2020, I began a private beta testing program. In 2021, I gave an Advancements to C64 OS demo here at World of Commodore. And finally, in 2022, C64 OS version 1.0 was released to the public as a commercial product. So just after World of Commodore 2021, I began 6 months of very intensive development to try and get everything ready for a release. And I announced in the spring that it would be available in the summer of 2022. I gave a couple of other demos online. For example, I gave, in 2021, I gave a presentation for Commodore Users Europe, and then again in summer of 2022, I gave another one that included most of what was included in version 1.0. And I'm very happy to say that those videos have had 37,000 views on YouTube, which is very, very helpful to get the word out, and the publicity is greatly appreciated. So over the 30-month beta period, I put out 9 betas, and the final beta was 1.0 beta, which was put out in the middle of this summer. And so in preparation to be able to release, I founded a company called Opcoders Inc. I got a logo design for my company, and I updated the design of C64OS.com, and I upgraded C64OS.com to HTTPS. I had been blogging, but my blog took a serious hit in 2022 because I was spending most of my time working on the print and online versions of the user's guide. And of course, I ordered a lot of physical stock, like manuals and SD cards and all that kind of stuff. Prepared the site to take orders. And I lined up a promotion video with a popular YouTuber, which many people have told me that's how they came to hear about it, Peripheractics Retro Recipes. So you would think, okay, finally, we're ready. But then, in early September, something happened. Very sadly, the Queen died. So, I released C64OS.com on the 19th of September, but very quietly. And then the next day, we released the promo video. So out of respect to the Queen, we actually delayed the release of the promo video by a week. It went live on the 20th of September, which, if you know when your seasons change, is the last day of summer of 2022. But I met the deadline. And I spent the last week worried that, wow, what is going to happen if I only sell 5 copies of C64 OS? Because I had sunk a lot of time into its development, and at that point I'd also put quite a bit of money into buying stock and getting other things set up and ready to go. And I'd spend a little bit of time being worried. But the next day, when that video went live, and we announced on Twitter that the website changes went live, I started making sales, and then I started making lots of sales. And pretty soon they were coming in faster than I could process them, and I had a backlog that I had to work through. But as they say, that's the right problem to have. This is the part that really blew my mind. I was not anticipating that that Retro Recipes video would end up with 219,000 views, which totally blew my mind. But that was fantastic. A lot of people came to me via that video. So it's wild, actually, that there are that many people that were wanted to watch it. So I'm selling C64 OS in two bundles, starter bundle and a standard bundle. Starter bundle is a 16 megabyte system card with a printed user's guide and a sticker, and C64 OS version 1.0 is installed, and you get access to a private Discord server for support and community. 16 megabytes, some people think that's small, other people think it's big. I think it's a good size because it's the same size as a maxed out CMD RAM link. It's also the same size as a CMD HD's native mode partition. And for, to put it in perspective, it can hold almost 100 D64 disk images. So, you think of operating systems of the past that have been released on disk. A 16 megabyte card is enormous compared to a disk release. The standard bundle comes on a 64 megabyte card, user's guide, and all the same stuff, but it also includes a pre-configured, pre-installed CMD HD image that can be used with Vice to just make it easier to get into using the system on Vice. The printed user's guide is 43 pages, and the online user's guide is 75,000 words. So there's a lot of content in there. It's like a 160-page book. So C64 OS version 1 includes three kind of tentpole applications: the app launcher, the file manager, and C64 archiver, plus several other kind of demo-y, testy type applications. And it includes a whole bunch of utilities: mouse, date, calculator, copy, save, open, installer, memory, settings, today, time, peak, themes, colors, and so on. 27 utilities in total. It also ships with 19 shared libraries, 13 hardware drivers, and 24 toolkit classes, along with all of the other sort of plumbing and stuff that makes an operating system go. So the major additions in 2022 are the Open utility, which lets you navigate the complete file system of all your storage devices, partitions, and directories. Gives you access to up to 15 favorite places and 15 recently opened documents. So effectively, this is like a document picker from within an application. The Save utility is similar. Lets you navigate the whole file system. You get a file name field that you can specify the file name that you want to save your document as. Has an option for overwriting a file if that file name already exists. So these were kind of the two last major pieces that let you open documents and save documents and navigate the file system from within other applications. And the other major component that I did in 2022 is the C64 archiver. So it creates archive files called .car files, and the car files can embed, as opposed to kind of non-native archive formats, they can embed things like PETSCII file names, special CBM file system metadata like the CBM file type and file log and so on. C64 archiver can recursively archive files and directories. An archive can holds the date and time that the archive was created. It holds a note, and it also comes in several different types. So restore, general, and install archives. And it can create an archive from any directory or directory tree on any of these supported devices: SD2IC, ID64, or the CMD devices. And then, of course, the great part is that you can extract from any of those devices that you created the archive. You can extract to any of those devices. And so, although the C64 archiver is an application for C64 OS, you can use it for anything. You don't have to use it just for C64 OS content. You can use it for creating archives of anything on a Commodore 64. And its partner is the installer utility, which was also new in 2022. This is used to do the extraction, so it can recursively extract car files. General files are like general archives for anything. They just extract to wherever the archive file is. But the install archives are really great. They overlay and update the system folder itself. So the pair of those two, that application and this utility together, allow me to bundle up system updates and then distribute them online, and then they can be installed. Yeah, there's also a tool for previewing files without extracting them. So C64 Archiver and Installer are the perfect pair for creating and distributing software and content bundles on the C64. And it makes supporting nested subdirectories in software much easier. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I want to show. I'm not going to have anywhere near enough time to show everything there is to show, but we'll hop into a demo and I'll walk through some things. And you can find out more by visiting c64os.com, or you can come to my beautiful table on the showroom floor. So if you've been following along with my previous C64OS demos, you'll be familiar with some of the stuff that I'm going to show. But I'm going to kind of recap some stuff, and I'll try and weave in some new things as I go. So we are taking first to the app launcher. So we're taking first to the app launcher, which is kind of a desktop-like environment. It's got 5 configurable desktops that you can access with this menu or with keyboard shortcuts. And each desktop is very configurable. So we can create a background image, we can set the color for this desktop, and we can create these aliases and color code them. Now, the app launcher itself is a C64 OS app, but apps can be run concurrently with utilities. So this is an example of a utility that is open at the same time as an application. And utilities run in these little windows, and you can drag them around, and you can drag them off the edge of the screen, and so on. So this is showing us that we're currently on version 1.01. 1.01 was actually released on c64os.com as a car installation archive that you can download. Anyone that's got version 1.0 can download it and install it. And of course, while utilities are open, the application is completely active behind. So we can click on things, we can drag boxes, and so on, but behind the utility. So another way to open utilities besides just clicking on things on the desktop is we have this this menu here. So I'm going to open, say, D&D Roller. And you note that when a utility opens like this, it has this state already because they remember their state. So if we change this, we click through here and we change this, we close it, it remembers exactly what it looks like, and the next time it gets open, it looks just like this. The other kind of neat thing I wanted to show is that while the utilities have focus, so while it's in focus, this title bar is dark, and we have this button here which is highlighted to show that it's a default button. So if we press return, we're triggering that default button. But when we click on the desktop, the utility goes out of focus, and so the title bar has become a lighter color, and the default button doesn't display as a default button while it's out of focus. Okay, so next I will change desktop. And what's kind of neat here is, when we change to another desktop, when we change to another desktop, we get a completely different background image, completely different layout of aliases, but the utility stays open even when you change desktop. The utility that you had open stays open. So what I want to do is I want to just completely customize this desktop just to show you how we could do that. So I'm going to start by saying select all, and then I'll say file scratch, and I'll buy all my my aliases. And now I want to change the backdrop. So I'll say file change backdrop. And there's a keyboard shortcut for that. So this is now opening the open utility. People were messing around with this machine earlier, so some of these things are like, hey, what's that doing down there? Okay, so this is the open utility that I mentioned during the first part. So this is a lot like the file manager. It's got a this split is live. You can move it around, and there's like horizontal scrolling and there's vertical scrolling, and we can do cool stuff like resize these column headers and whoops, there we go. And of course we can also and so this is open like inside the application, right? So everything, just like with any utility, the rest of the application is completely active while this open picker is open. So we can navigate the file system in here. We can go all the way up to, say, we can go up to our device, we can go into a partition, and we can go into our OS directory. And we also have keyboard support in the, right, so I can use the keyboard to navigate up and down these selections, go into that, and go into that. All right, so there's keyboard shortcut, keyboard support in here as well. So now I'll pick, say, this background and select. Now, you can kind of see that the background has changed back there, but of course the utility is still open. So the utility was open in select mode, which allows you to pick multiple files without having to go through the cycle of closing the open utility and then reopening the open utility. The only problem, of course, is that it's covering the backdrop, right? So we could just, drag it like this to reveal whatever our cool new backdrop is that we've picked. But it's a bit clumsy to be moving the utility like that. So you can also use window shade mode. If I hold the control key and click on the title bar, it just instantly collapses into the title bar, so you can see what's back there. And then, of course, there's also a keyboard shortcut for that. So even when my mouse is over here, I can hold Control W to just snap that open and closed. So now maybe I'll pick another backdrop. We can see a preview of that. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that as I'm selecting these files, you can see over here in this list of recents that the files that I'm clicking on are getting added to the top of the list of recents, and the ones at the bottom are just getting bumped off the list. So what's kind of cool here is, like if we were to navigate away or to go to somewhere completely different, if we wanted to, say, get this file, which is our recent, if we wanted that to be the one we select, when we click it, that just takes us right back to where that file is. It selects the file and it scrolls the list so that that file is in focus. And then we would just hit select, and away we go. So that's recents. So here's our cool new background, but now I would like to add, say, new aliases to this desktop. So I can say file add alias. Now this is going to open the open utility again, but this time it opens it in a slightly different mode. So now what I'll do is I'll use my path bar here to navigate back up. and I'll go into my applications directory where I have some applications. And I can simply, so I'm going to click on these, and I'm going to push return to trigger that select button down. I could click it, but it's faster to touch the return button. So I'm just going to click on some of these. And you can see that they're getting added to that list of recents over there on the sidebar as I select them. And then I can window shade. And so here they all are, and I can just drag these down to put them somewhere where I want them to be. So. And I can drag, I can drag a box around them all, and I can move them a little bit at a time like that. So now I'll unwindow shade my window. I'll go back up to, this time I'll go to utilities, because I'd like to have some utilities on this desktop. And we can pick one of these. I can do this completely with the keyboard as well if I want, right? Just by moving the cursor down, hitting return. Those. Memory. Okay, so now let's say, okay, I've added all the aliases I want to add. So I can close this utility, and I can move these. Them to be. And well. Okay, so it's kind of cool. Now let's say maybe I want to change the colors of these things. So I can say options, colors. We get this color picker. Then I can select these guys and say, okay, maybe I want them to be red. Maybe I want these guys to be brown or something. Okay. And now if I click on the desktop itself, I can set the color of the desktop. Now, you see how the colors, it's kind of in the way though, right? Again, so there's cool little tricks for lots of neat things. So for example, if I double click on the title bar of colors, we'll go into this vertical mode. And then because utilities can be put partially off the edge of the screen, I can actually put it there like that. And now I can see almost the entire screen, but I can click around and and choose what it is that I want things to look like. Like that. And so there we have a completely customized desktop, and that is that's pretty. It's pretty fun actually to mess around with that. There's also a tool called Screen Edit that lets you make your own backdrops or to customize the ones that exist. And there are 35 or 40 kind of built-in backdrops that you can mess around with. So moving on to the next thing. So I'm going to double-click on the clock in the menu bar to show what happens when we do that. So here we got this calendar program, which I call Today. So we can say click on these months and navigate forward through the months to see what's going on. We can click on this Today button to go back to Today. Today is highlighted in green. There's a bunch of interesting things that it'll show you, like we're at the end of week 49. Christmas this year falls on a Sunday. First day of Christmas is on a Wednesday, etc. We also have these little exclamation points. Those indicate which calendar dates have notes. So if we click on the 25th, that's Christmas. Click on the 21st, first day of winter. It's like, okay, so what's on the 10th? Go get the Christmas tree. Go get the Christmas tree. That's kind of cool. What's on the 2nd here? Okay, so I go, oh, World of Commodore. It's like, well, that's not quite right? I'd much rather that this note be not on the 2nd, but be on the 3rd. So this is a text field that we can fully edit. So I'll say Commodore A to select all the text, and I'll hit Commodore X to cut that to the clipboard. And if I hit return on that empty field, it saves the empty field to this date. And you see the little indicator just disappeared. Now I can click on the third, and I can hit paste, hit return on that, and the little indicator appears. And then so maybe I want to add that to the fourth as well, because this is a 2-day event. So I can paste that, hit return, and now I've moved my note to those dates. So that's just kind of a cool example of a utility and its integration with the clipboard, and the fact that you can open it up within any application. So, of course, the point of the app launcher is to launch apps, right? So we will double-click on this application alias that I've created to launch chess. Now, as soon as we try to leave this desktop or we try to leave the app launcher, it automatically saves any changes that were made. So while I was adding those aliases, they're just in memory, but then as soon as I leave, they get saved out to disk automatically. So actually, just before I describe a little bit more about chess, I'd like to point out that I'll say use my utilities menu, and I'll open this utility called clipboard. And so here we can see that the clipboard contains 23 bytes of type text Petsky, and the content is that note that we were just copying around on the today view. So this is just to show that the clipboard is like universal, it's across applications. So you can use it to move data between utilities, and you can use it to move data between applications. So the chess program, it's a work in progress. I plan to build out more of its functionality, but for the version 1.0 release, I just kind of gave it this interface that tells you what the demo version of it can do. So we could scroll through this text. And I cleaned up these menus and added some functionality that I'll show. So this also demonstrates that although the text-based, the user interface is primarily in a text mode, you can also have kind of a hybrid mode, right? So when there's a graphics available, you can drag up the status bar to get to the graphics mode. And not only is there a graphics mode, but you can interact with the content in the graphics mode. So I can say, let's say I want to put this guy here. And while that graphics mode is interactable, you can also, like the content in the text half of the screen is also interactable, right? The stuff's all open. So now let's say I'll just play a silly chess game here. My bishop right here to try and put the king in check. I'll grab this guy in here. Now I'll put this guy here. These can be dragged around as well, so I can drag in that. Put him here. So now I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is a good start to a chess game, but let's say what I want to do is I want to save the state of this game. So I will go game save as. Now, before I actually save this game, the status bar has multiple modes. So when you click the status bar to switch through its modes, and so right now we just have two modes. We have the message that's coming from the application, chess, and we also have the most recent disk status and the available memory. Well, I will. So we can. This is the save dialog. It looks very much like open, but it's got this couple of extra fields. So I can say go into my documents directory, and I can, this is a perfectly suitable name, so I will hit save. Okay. So we get to pick whatever file name we want, put it in the file system wherever we want to create like a saved game document. And now that we have done that, as we click through the status bar, it has this extra mode that tells you what. So I could say Control R will right? So you can activate the keyboard shortcuts in the menus even when you're in full screen graphics mode. That just restored the game from the last previous save state and put the pieces back where they were. Yeah, so that's kind of just an example of a way that applications can use the open dialog for picking files and use the save utility for saving files. And so now from the app launcher, I'm going to jump over to the file manager. The open and save utilities are kind of modeled on the file manager, but they're a little bit simpler. So file manager lets us also navigate the complete file system, but it has 4 tabs. So we can be in up to 4 different places at the same time across the 4 different tabs. Now, there are also quick ways to navigate. So for example, the Go menu can be used to jump you directly to like your documents directory, or your games directory, music, pictures, kind of default places. And those 4 places are associated with F1, F3, F5, and F7. And then you also can jump to these kind of, they're dynamic, but they're fixed locations. So the current system directory, the applications directory of this system directory, and the utilities directory, which can be accessed also with F2, F4, and F6. But what I wanted to show is, so where would that documents, games, music, and pictures be? So you can customize those by, we'll pick, say, options and then places. And this opens a, so I just moved the split aside so I can see these files side by side with this. So this is showing where they're currently configured to. And just for the sake of this demo, I can clear these out. So I'll just click in these fields and hit the clear key. So this is like standard behavior as well, like the clipboard integration and using the clear key and the cursor, all the behavior of these text fields is standard across other applications that use these fields. So now I'll just put focus in the documents field. And over here I can navigate around my file system. So maybe I can go into documents. And then while I'm in here, if this is where I want this place to be, I can say options, copy place. And when I do that, it actually just puts the path into the field, which is I think is kind of cool because the utility has the ability to listen for messages about changes to the clipboard. And if it gets a message about a change to the clipboard, it can look at the clipboard data type, and if it's a file reference, then it can suck that in and put it into the field automatically for you. So now I'll just quickly, I also don't have to navigate into the directory. I can just highlight it, say copy that place. I'll pop that in there. And for this, maybe I'll go and say digital audio place. And of course, these could be to different devices. They could be to different partitions, and so on. Local pictures. And we'll put these there. So now, as soon as I close this utility, it will save those new shortcut places to wherever I just specified. So I can now say, like from the Go menu, I can say, oh, just jump straight to the documents directory, and it'll just jump straight there. Or I can use my function keys and go and say F3 will take me to games, F4 take me to audio, F5 take me to pictures. Okay. So next thing that I'm going to show is, so here I am in my pictures directory, and I have a bunch of subdirectories of other kinds of pictures. So I'll go into this interpaint directory, and I'll scroll down here to find a very classic image, Middle Earth. So this is an interpaint file, but as it happens, I haven't assigned this type of file to open in any particular application yet. So what happens is we get this opener utility. The opener utility tells us that the file that we've got selected is a PRG file with an extension of IPH, and it gives us a list of applications and a list of utilities that we can choose to open this file in. So I will say choose image viewer. Now I could just click open and it would open it once, but the file type would remain unassigned to any applications. But I would like to actually assign this file type to always open in image viewer, so I just click assign, and now I'll click open. So the assign has been established. Now the file manager is going to open the image viewer application and pass to it a file reference to the file that we specified. We can actually see that file reference in the status bar. And just like in chess, when there's graphics data, we can slide the status bar up to take a look at it. Go to full screen graphics mode. That is a truly classic image on the Commodore 64. So now I'll just I'll go home again. Okay. So now, just for the sake of it, I will click on this file, and this time, because I've already assigned that file type to image viewer without going through that opener stage, it just pops open this application and shows us that image, which is very cool. And of course, from within this application, we don't have to go back to the file manager. We can actually say open image, and it'll use the opener utility inside this application to let us pick a file to open. Am I out of time? I am out of time, right? 5 more minutes? Okay. I'm pretty much at the end anyway. So what I wanted to show now is that I made that assign, right? But what if I wanted to undo that assign? So C64 OS is very open. Everything is done in a file somehow. Nothing is kind of really hidden away. So if we go into the system directory and then we go into settings, where all the sort of global settings for the system are saved. These are all settings files for various system settings. We have this assigns subdirectory. And in the assigns subdirectory, we have these files that indicate, so FT's file type, and then PRG and IPH. That file right there was the one that got created when I clicked assign. So I can say use text view to preview the contents of that alias file, or that assigned file rather. And the fact that this file says image viewer, that's what connects those interpaint files to image viewer. And I can also delete that, so I'll just scratch that file now. Okay, so we can just scratch the file. Now interpaint files are not associated with anything anymore. And lastly, I wanted to show that in this list of recents, I have this 1.01 update.car. If I make the thing a little wider. And I click on it, and it takes me to where I had stashed that file, and it's highlighted. And if I just double-click that file, car files have already been assigned to open in the installer utility. And so here's the installer utility. It's telling us that this type of file is an install archive. It tells us when I created this update. We got a little note here. It tells us exactly what is the contents of this archive. And I'm not going to do that right now, but you just click install, and that is how you can install system updates that get released on C64OS.com. You download them with a PC, stick them on the SD card, and then you can just double-click them, run them through this installer, and you get new updates and features. And I think that's pretty much all I had time for. Cool. I'm trying to stick to the limit, so that's the presentation.
Yes. How much is it?
Oh, so I'm selling C60, the starter bundle on C64OS.com. If you order it, it's $59 for the starter bundle and $64 for the standard bundle. And then I'm selling them here on the floor at 12% off. So $56 for the standard bundle.
So did you say $59 for the starter bundle?
Yeah, if you order on the website, it's $59 for the starter bundle and $64 for the standard bundle. And then if you order today here at World of Commodore, it's 12% off.
Okay, so yeah, so $64 would get you everything. So
Okay. And I got a table, so if you want to, yeah.
What limitations do you have that you run into when you're designing this? What are there anything specific?
What limitations did I run into developing it, or?
At the moment, right now, is there certain limitations that you ran into? That
Yeah, RAM. There's no RAM on a Commodore 64, like zero. It may as well be zero. Yeah, no, seriously though, RAM is the big problem. Like it's not multitasking. It's kind of partial, like the ability to run an application and a utility at the same time covers a lot of ground. Like it lets you do at least two things kind of at the same time. But if you can't run two applications at the same time, because an application like the file manager with 4 tabs and loading directories, which is data, as soon as you start loading up, you can load up 4 directories at the same time, but if you load up 4 long directories at the same time, you are already at 0 memory, right? Because there's just not enough memory. And so it'll try to do kind of intelligent things like it'll bump out of memory the least recently accessed directory. But memory is the main memory is the main constraint.
Can you use a 1764 REU or 1541 R2 plus for extra RAM?
Yeah, there is support for an REU, but it's not like the way PCs use extra RAM, right? Like a PC's CPU can usually address more RAM than you have,
Okay.
and then as you add more RAM, a PC will just kind of dynamically recognize how much you have and then use more of it, and then and on a C64, 64K is the limit of the CPU, so the REU has to be used kind of in special ways. Yeah, so there already is some REU support, and I'm going to add more REU support, but it will remain forever kind of annoying and a problem that 64K is a low limit.
When are you going to start OS 128?
People ask that, and I go, "Oh, I know what you're looking for. You're looking for C128OS.com. Yeah, go find that guy." Yeah, I'm not planning on making a 128 native version, but most of the 128's extra hardware can be accessed from 64 mode. Like you can access its RAM, and you can access the 80-column video chip, and you can access the extra keyboard. So I'm just going to keep adding, like I've already added some support for that stuff. So I'm just going to keep adding support for the extra hardware, but from within 64 mode.
Now you're going to have to tell me how to do that.
Yeah. So if there are any other questions, you can come to my table in the room and cede the floor to whoever is next. So thank you all for listening.